Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Annabelle Munson, and this is the Universal Business Aviation Ops Update webinar and meetup. Good to have you here. I'm your host and moderator for today's special session, focusing on missions to the Asia-Pacific region, and especially China's recent reopening. So a few housekeeping items, even though we're in a recorded session. Let's talk about time for a moment. We're keeping this program to hopefully a little under 20 minutes total, so you can budget your viewing time. Scope. As with all of our webinars, we do cover a lot and pretty quickly, but don't forget you can always access the latest ops news in our regular ops update email and access in-depth articles on key issues via our Operational Insight blog. And you can always access the details for travel to any Asia-Pacific destination via Feasibility IQ, your one-stop pre-trip planning application. I'll share the link for the blog and to sign up for our email, as well as get the Feasibility IQ 30-day trial link at the end of today's session. And questions. I know after you watch this update, you may have some questions, so please do reach out to us. For general information, email us at operationalinsight@univway.com or contact your trip support team or your account manager directly about any specific trips already in the planning stages. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's set the stage for today's discussion. So as mentioned, we have a very special edition of the Ops Update webinar with highlights on Asia Pacific and especially China. We'll get a quick overview of Asia Pacific hotspots and the current state of operations into the region. The key things to keep in mind when planning trips to the Asia Pacific region right now that could have the most impact on your missions. We're going to get the real story for China operations now that COVID restrictions have finally ended, and insight into supply chain realities, service arrangements, and overall life on the ground and what to expect. Plus, a preview of major high traffic events in the region and what that could mean for your business aircraft's travel. So let me introduce you to the experts that are going to be our guides and our panel for today on these important topics. I would love to welcome Yini Lin to our program. Yini currently serves as Director of Sales, Asia Pacific, with added responsibility as Interim Managing Director, Universal Aviation China. Yini has been with Universal since 2014 and is an expert in all aspects of operations to the Asia Pacific region and throughout China. And I should say I've gotten the privilege of working directly with Yini several times when we did the A-Base trade show and event several years in a row. So I've had the pleasure of working with her personally. So it is great to have a chance to have her in this forum. Also joining us is Ricky Fang. Ricky graduated from Civil Aviation University of China and has 15 years of experience in business aviation in China since 2008. Now, we are very fortunate to have Ricky in the role of Operations Manager for Universal Aviation China, where he uses his deep experience in private aviation, and specifically his 12 years of tenure with Universal Aviation China to help make our clients' missions a success. So a warm welcome to Ricky as well. They're both, I should say, Yini and Ricky, this is their first webinar with us, but I hope not their last. Thank you both for taking the time out to prepare this update for our clients. Yini, I want to get started with you first. Let's set the stage for an overview. So what's the state of operations for the most in-demand destinations in the Asia-Pacific region, and are there any changes to note?
Thank you, Annabelle. Hello, everyone. I'm Yini. The majority of Asia-Pacific countries opened border in Q2 2022. Quickly, we saw flight activities in some of most in-demand Southeast Asia destinations, such as Singapore, Jakarta, Bangkok, and Hanoi. Starting from December, the high traffic wave has moved to Japan as it is the traditional ski season for private jet travelers. Rapidly recovering and increased demand on private jet traveling has caused serious resource challenges in terms of slot, parking, and airport manpower. As China has just opened the border last month, we foresee the similar resource challenge will happen here soon as well. I'm taking Beijing as the example. During COVID, the daily movement was about 3 arrivals, 2 departures, and it's not rare that the FBO could only handle 1 movement during a day. This month, the daily movement of Beijing has increased to averagely 15 arrivals and 12 departures per day. The current traffic volume hasn't reached pre-COVID level yet, but it's 400% increase, and it's only 40 days since China reopened. It's very important to remember that airport and aviation-related suppliers throughout Asia Pacific, especially China, had to deal with layoffs or pay cuts in the past 3 years to minimize the impact from COVID. Some handling companies have even changed their business from handling to trading, ticket selling, or even insurance. How to fulfill the increased handling demand? Ramping back up from almost 0 flights is going to be a huge challenge. Because of the inexperience of the staff and the lack of training and the lack of practicing, the risk increase significantly. Many aviation-related workers in the market have not been trained for safety, compliance, or appropriate vetting of third-party vendors. However, these people will soon be back to aviation job in order to meet the increased demand. At Universal Aviation China, we have remained diligent in our recruitment process, training, compliance training, and vetting of third-party vendors. Choosing a company with strong compliance policy has always been important for operating into China. As a Western company, we are not handling sanctioned Russian passengers on the denied party list, while we are getting reports that other Chinese handling companies do. This could be an important operational consideration, and it's not necessarily a good risk mitigation strategy in the current situation, especially for Fortune 500 companies that must be more vigilant. My advice is, ask your handler questions. What is their training, compliance program, and experience level of staff? The right handler can make or break your trip to Asia Pacific and China.
Thank you, Yini. I really appreciate you setting the stage. Important details there. So with that, I think this is a great way to segue over to Ricky. He's going to dig a little deeper into some of those specific operational issues. So Ricky, welcome. Very good to have you. So Ricky, the big news recently, of course, as Yini just mentioned, is the reopening of China to foreign travel. There's been a lot of anticipation on this, I know, amongst many, many operators after the long hiatus. So what is accessibility like now? Anything operators considering a trip to China should know and be prepared for?
Thanks, Annabelle. This is Ricky. I'm based in Beijing. China has already dropped most of the COVID requirements that were in place. Now, international travelers to China will no longer be required to have quarantine or a PCR test upon arrival. But before arriving, travelers must complete a PCR test and report a negative result within 48 hours before departure, and must also complete an online customs declaration. For this declaration, you can start it with either a QR code or a website provided here. That's all.
All right, now let's dig a little deeper into some of the supply chain issues and the situation currently. How is, for example, hotel availability in China right now?
Okay, for hotel has become much busier since last month, but still have capacity to receive more guests. The rate of 5-star hotels in Beijing, such as Conrad or JW Marriott, are in the range of $170 to $190 if booking it through Universal.
Excellent. So good accessibility there, and they're ready to receive guests. Moving on to ground services providers, Yini definitely mentioned some things to consider here. Anything you would like to add regarding ground service?
Certainly, there are concerns about capacity and capabilities. As Yini just mentioned, it is important to find the right experienced and trained people to mitigate risks and secure resources. So finding a reliable provider is the key.
Got it. So definitely not a step to skip in the process and the excitement of coming back to China. Moving on to life on the ground for visitors, what is life like now post-COVID?
Actually, our life in China has just gotten back in normal. Like everywhere else in the world, visitors will experience the same, I think. but the government still requires us to wear a mask in public places.
Exactly. Well, that's a good reminder because I know for many of us that is no longer a day-to-day requirement. So a good reminder for crew and passengers making their way to the country. Regarding processing of necessary permits, any delays there to take into account?
Regarding permits, we did not see that has become a challenge for us after January 8th.
All right, so good. Business as usual. That's good
Yeah.
to know. And then since you've had the benefit, I know, of handling some trips already, and clearly, as Yini mentioned, the ramp up has been increasing significantly, day after day. Can you give an example of a recent trip you helped facilitate since the reopening?
Not a problem. Since China reopened, we have handled international flights going to Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, Wuhan, Kunming, Chongqing, and Shenzhen. I can tell you, the entire procedure is much easier, except for the requirement of a PCR test before traveling and do the online customs declaration. But there is one thing that crew and passenger may need to plan ahead is visa. Crew should have valid crew visa to enter China. Meanwhile, passengers should have valid business visa or a visitor visa. It is very important to know that except for the type of crew visa, other type of visas which were issued before March 28th in 2020 are no longer valid.
Oh, indeed. Those are going to be some important details. So thank you for that. Speaking of, so like the rest of the world, major events are returning to China. Can you tell me about the China Development Forum, the CDF, that's taking place soon?
Yes, CDF is the upcoming event in Beijing on March 25th to 27th. Since this event is held by the government, both CAAC and the local airport authority will give priorities to grant slot and parking to the event flights. But in case of extremely limited parking at the airports throughout the conference, there is an alternate airport, ZBTJ, is recommended. It is about 130 kilometers away from Beijing downtown and 2 hours driving. That's all.
Well, thank you so much, Ricky. I really appreciate the detailed operational review. And then to wrap things up, I'd like to bring Yini back on for another moment. Welcome back, Yini. So as we wrap up today, what are some of the best practices and takeaways you want to give our operators considering China trips now or maybe very soon in the future?
Well, since China opened the border in January, we have seen the flights from Europe and the Middle East to China, but very few from North America. I just want to take this opportunity to let all the audience of webinar know that operating into China is visible. China allows and welcomes foreign private jets, crews, and passengers who have valid visa to China. If you are preparing a potential trip to China and wish to get the local intel, please feel free to contact Ricky and myself. A reputable handler like us can give you the consultation services you look for and provide you the seamless experience on the ground.
Excellent. Thank you, Yini. And on that note, we're going to thank again both of our experts from China, Yini and Ricky, for spending this much time preparing this update. It's been an absolute pleasure working with them on this, and I look forward to hopefully having them back soon. So as a reminder, I'm going to link here the information that Ricky gave us earlier on the declarations page. So you'll have that link in a slide immediately after we finish this recording. And then in addition, I have a couple of other key links to give you as well. So first off, a link to our Universal Aviation Asia Pacific location pages online, where you can get information about any and all of our locations throughout the Asia Pacific region. A link to our Feasibility IQ page with access to the free 30-day trial information, as well as links into our knowledge base. As well, finally, a link to our Operational Insight blog. I definitely recommend this for any of you who do not subscribe. Do sign up to get the updates because you will get the most up-to-date information sent to you directly. And these are more in-depth articles that deal with ongoing operational issues for business aviation worldwide. About questions, if you've got some general questions, please reach out to us directly. We're going to link this email as well, operationalinsight@univway.com. In addition, I'll make sure you have the contact information for both Yini and Ricky in Universal Aviation China. So what's next when it comes to our webinar program? Well, we'll have more live webinars and definitely more special edition webinar programs coming up now through the fall of 2023. So stay tuned for announcements. I know we already have plans for seasonal peak season previews, spring break, for example, the summer Mediterranean season, and then all the way into the fall where we get back to business, especially throughout Europe. We'll include a deep dive, probably one or two of those on our webinar programs related to Feasibility IQ and how to further streamline that tool to your benefit for trip planning and research. And finally, you can always drop me a note directly at our operational insight at univway.com email with any topics or burning questions you think could make great webinar topics. It's always great to get input from you guys directly, helps make the program that much more fun. So in the meantime, till our next program, I want to thank you for joining. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. And I do look forward to seeing you all soon and hopefully Ini and Ricky back with us very, very soon as well. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.